The Ukrainian armed forces drove the Russians into a trap. The Russian army is howling. Putin is tearing his clothes. Pokrovsk gritted its teeth. Tanks and drones achieved the impossible. Mortars are tearing the occupiers to pieces. The enemy's plans have been thwarted. The last attempts of the Russian command. Our forces deceived the occupiers and used their own tactics against them. How did it work? All about this in our episode Hellpoint. Ukrainian armed forces bombs are accurately hitting the Russians' heads. Powerful resistance. The enemy on the Novopavlivka direction has begun. The occupiers don't even dare to go on assaults. A swarm of drones attack the enemy in Pokrovsk. The invaders are no longer so bold. Ukrainian warriors showed them who's boss. All the details of the operation to thoroughly roast Putin's army in our further material.
This is a piece from an enemy-guided aerial bomb. It is with such enemy metal that the Russians burn Donetsk daily. They destroy settlements. And what happens, and what remains after their strikes, we can see now. There was a building here, almost nothing is left of it. The center of the village is deserted. The school, store, house of culture, and neighboring buildings are torn apart. Finding something intact here is extremely difficult. And the closer to the line of contact, the more destruction there is. Some villages completely disappear. They remain and exist only on the map.
There was a store here too, a direct hit by a guided aerial bomb enemy, and from the store.
The scorched earth tactic that the Russians often used everywhere they fought. They destroy everything and then try to enter. And the enemy does not risk assaulting our defense forces with equipment because they already have experience.
More likely due to the current shortage of armored vehicles. They tried armored vehicles the first few times. Essentially, independently. Units of equipment during the initial assaults. They also tried armored vehicles in small columns, but it was ineffective.
The paratroopers of the 79th Brigade have been fighting the enemy in the Donetsk region for almost 3 years. Currently, they are among those holding back the occupiers on the Novopavlivka section of the front to prevent the enemy from advancing further and turning other regions into complete ruins.
CPD Rumi. Well, I haven't lost my access on this. I haven't lost on the Semaphorial.
At those moments, we observe how our drone operators destroy the Russians to prevent them from gathering for their assaults. Bombers are working on the enemy's Wasp.
Ah, I see. The equipment is like destroyed.
The drone is on target within minutes and drops small bombs. Concrete barriers are shattered and everything ignites. The Russians have no chance of survival. None.
They run through the fields to the village, looking for shelter, rushing into basements, into garages. The guys with the Mavic spot them, give us the coordinates, and we work based on those coordinates.
The fighter with the pseudonym Tucha thins out the ranks of the occupiers thanks to the UAVs. After capturing Kharkiv, the Russians tried to advance further, so there's work to be done, he says.
Mainly, yes, they start in the morning. Yes, they track them one by one, two by two, like that in the plantations, directly on them. We worked on them.
It's 10 in the morning, and the engineer is already preparing a new batch of drones for the pilots at the position. The Russians are audacious, sometimes moving even in broad daylight. So the paratroopers constantly remind the occupiers whose land this is and who is in charge here.
Will you have to prepare a lot in a day?
Well, yes.
Because now practically everyone is fighting with drones.
Well, that's why, yes. So everything you see here plus more will be prepared. That's, well, from 30 to 50. One day we somehow handed over 53 units. Well, it all happened in the morning, you could say.
But the enemy not only presses with manpower, but also actively launches swarms of drones. Sometimes it's impossible to reach positions or deliver ammunition or supplies there. But these large drones come to the rescue. They destroy the enemy and deliver everything necessary to our fighters at the positions. But the Russians hunt them down and shoot them down, so the paratroopers are now raising funds for a new such bird. Then to join in?
They ask. Remote mining with them is effective because without using soldiers, we don't expose them to danger. And with drones, we simply mine the routes of advancement and the paths of the equipment. We also drop provisions because the logistics are not great right now to avoid unnecessary risks with extra equipment. And
every day the Russians are destroying not only the Donetsk region but all of Ukraine. Yet in this settlement, despite the destruction around, the Ukrainian flag flies over the school. And the Russians have not reached here precisely thanks to those who are currently shielding the rest of the country. Every minute they are making maximum efforts to hold the front line and prevent the entire Ukraine from turning into complete ruins. Oleg Kurnenko, Oleksiy Yevchenko, Zakhar Komak, FAC ESI TV, United News.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Mountains of occupiers' equipment in flames. Absolutely everything is burning. The Russian army could not withstand the thunderous attack of the Ukrainian armed forces. Something unpredictable also happened in the Kupiansk direction, and near the Liman, the enemy's offensive collapsed. In Chasiv Yar, our forces drove the Russians into their holes. The hottest section of the front is gradually being cleared of invaders, yet the tension does not subside. How it happened, all the details, in just a moment.
Near Vovchansk, the artillerymen of the Guard Brigade disrupted the occupiers' gathering. The Russians began setting up fortifications. They were spotted by aerial reconnaissance while dragging logs. As soon as the gunners received the coordinates, they covered the enemy's trenches, dugouts, and bunkers with fire. The third assault in the Kharkiv region used FPV drones to hit a tank, a pickup truck, several mortars, a cannon, and an antenna. The fighters delivered a series of precise strikes on equipment and shelters. Everything went up in flames along with the enemy infantry. In the Kupiansk direction, the Russians tried daily to advance by taking advantage of the geographical features of the area. The fighters of the Karadakh Brigade are always ready to repel the Muscovites' onslaught. They hit with drops and kamikaze drones. The Signum unit of the 53rd Brigade, named after Prince Volodymyr Monomach, causes panic among the occupiers in the Luhansk region. Our fighters strike even where the enemy feels safe. This time they tracked and burned the occupiers' BMP.
In the Oloman direction, the Russian army attacked near the settlements of Novosadivka, Nove, Katerinivka, Zelena Dolina, Torske, and Yampilivka. The enemy's storming actions were repelled. The enemy unsuccessfully conducted offensive actions in the Serebryansky forestry.
Fighting does not cease in the Siversky direction. The occupiers in the open field are a fine for the UAV operators of the K2 unit. Even when they try to hide in plantations and burrows, the inevitable awaits them. The enemy loses group after group. Russian invaders continue to attack the Chasiv Yar ravine. These are frames from the 24th Mechanized Brigade. If the enemy stormtroopers do not fall under artillery strikes, they are destroyed by mortar men or finished off by drone operators. And if by chance someone manages to reach our positions, they are given no chance. Infantry. Near Chasiv Yar, a Rarok drone destroyed an RHM-4 armored personnel carrier. This is a chemical protection vehicle designed for reconnaissance of contaminated areas. At that time, about a dozen enemy assault troops were on the armor. In the Kramatorsk direction, in dense fog, the 5th assault stopped the Russian motorcade. Among the enemy losses were 24 motorcyclists, 3 armored vehicles, and other equipment.
In the Donetsk direction, the enemy carried out 28 attacks in the Donetsk area. Ozarjanivka, Delivka, Krimske, and Leonidivka. In the Pokrovsk direction, our defenders stopped 80 aggressor attacks.
Within the Phoenix Border Guard unit, there is a genie who fulfills the wishes of Ukrainians with the help of the vampire bomber. In a year of service, he has turned dozens of enemy equipment units into scrap.
Armored equipment, which the enemy uses very actively with angles, covered self-tapping. MTLB, BRM, tractors, tanks, all sorts, APCs. Recently at Taretskaya, an RLS station, also enjoys causing nightmares.
The highest number of assaults previously recorded in the Pokrovsk direction. Among others, the 59th Separate Assault Unit operates there. When the Russians tried to enter New Alexandrivka through the Balka, they were met by an FPV drone.
And they are assaulting our villages, helping to stop our footballers and camps.
The occupiers penetrated deep into our positions, aiming to capture the aerial reconnaissance team, but the pilots quickly formed an assault group and rushed to rescue their comrades. A swarm of drones from other units also came to assist.
They had yellow tape. The guys understood that it was a sabotage and reconnaissance group. Because of the accent, the guys were in the basement and the enemy was in the yard. We were flying, saw everything, and still needed to go out to help. I looked up at the sky, and was amazed. There were so many drones, well, Mavics, and everything was dropped, with and without payloads.
The Marines of the 35th Brigade shared footage of their work south of Serebryanka. There, the enemy does not cease trying to improve their tactical position, but in vain. Ukrainian paratroopers from the 46th Airmobile Brigade approached a trench with Russian forces in a Husky armored vehicle, threw in explosives, blew up the occupiers, and successfully returned to their position. The battalion of the Presidential Brigade, together with the 31st Mechanized Brigade, destroyed an enemy column in the Novopavlivka direction. The enemy decided to take advantage of the unfavorable weather conditions for reconnaissance. 3 BMPs with infantry and a group of motorcycles advanced for a breakthrough. But they did not catch our defenders off guard, unexpectedly. With faith in our soldiers, Tetiana Litvin, Inter, details, Marathon Day-by-Day News.
A real rout? The armed forces of Ukraine hit the occupiers with tanks. Elite Russian fighters squeal in fear. A black day for Putin. Footage of the Russian rout has hit the internet. You can't miss them. Nothing like this has happened in Donbass before. How do Ukrainian soldiers manage to outsmart the enemy so skillfully? All this and more coming up.
Fire. Carefully drive up to the cellar or the bunker, lower the gun and fire.
The tank operates with direct aim, just meters away from the enemy.
Fire.
Speed, armor, fire, and maneuver, the battle formula from the tankers of the 32nd Brigade, who are fighting the occupiers near Pokrovsk.
Even if a group of 5 or 6 people is approaching, they try to cover them.
The Ukrainian T-64 takes its usual route out of the forest plantation and heads to the firing position, covering a certain distance. The tank hides among the trees and begins to engage enemy targets.
Goma Yusho Warfu, they also say, and like it nicely.
In the military, this is called working from concealed positions, when tank operators do not see the enemy but fire at given coordinates. A few minutes of work and the crew returns to a conditionally safe zone.
The tank is very effective. It is both protected and effective in terms of accuracy, range, and with cumulative power and shrapnel. It is also effective in direct engagement, as the armor allows us to enter cities that...
Vasil, the commander of the T-64, has experience from the battles for Avdiivka, Mariinka, and the Donetsk airport back in 2014. He says becoming a tanker was a funny story.
They asked who has a driver's license. Well, we raised our hands. Well, now you're a tanker. It's okay, it's fine.
We're sitting, freezing. We kill the... Thanks to everyone who helped. He kills them. With these boars.
The big war caught Vasil in the Czech Republic. He was working in construction there and immediately returned. And for over 3 years now, the tank crew has become his second family. It is his combat vehicle that breaks into the village captured by the occupiers and shoots the enemy. Point blank.
We needed to dismantle them, the buildings. There were storm groups, a large number of enemy forces. We arrived, dismantled, but again, mines, devices. Such an interesting thing.
The tank is a primary target for the enemy, so the Russians direct not only drones at it, even guided aerial bombs are aimed at it.
This to break through. Can you imagine what kind of shrapnel there was? Right? This to break through as if it broke like plasticine.
Volodymyr, the commander of the Armored Vehicle Repair Unit, shows the aftermath of an aerial bomb strike.
Volodymyr, the courageous and notable Ukrainian from the Polisia region, is making a significant mark on the front.
Lucky to meet a fellow countryman.
Chornursky? That's why something is happening with you neighbors. That's why something is happening with you, friend. Yes. Because this war is such a plague now.
Before the full-scale invasion, Volodymyr worked as a long-haul truck driver and learned about the attack by our sworn neighbors while on a trip.
Here between France, somewhere on the border of France and Spain. I called the boss, hello, I'm going home. Mr. Vladimir, I understand.
Volodymyr, a participant in the defense of Chernihiv, says that if anyone knows what the Russian world is, it's him. He has traveled it far and wide, assuring that we don't need such a thing.
How do they live there? In Moscow? Well, how many kilometers? Well, 100 is already a lot. Why? That's not Russia anymore. That's the 19th century. My father was a Kazan Tatar. My mother was Russian. Well, they asked if we were Russians.
Yes, among the tankers there is also a Russian Rodion fighting. The crew commander, however, always clarifies in conversation. Russian only by documents. But he grew up in Sumy.
How are we supposed to resist? They are the ones advancing.
And Rodion has been defending Ukraine since 2014. He served in the artillery, now he's a tanker.
The full-scale invasion began. My son was born on February 21st. And on the 24th it started. My wife was in the maternity hospital and I was running around. With a gun during the occupation, you wouldn't believe it in Sumy region.
In modern combat, a tank is an assault weapon, but without a crew, it's just a collection of armor, a cannon, and other mechanisms. The Formula C shoot is about tankers.
Don't get lost, be faithful in your abilities. And mainly, everything depends on the commander, as he calculates, yes, the gunner will do everything, and the shooting will be good then. Come on, Kostik, one more, come on, one more. Fire.
Near Pokrovsk, Russian troops have become bogged down in the war with Ukrainians. The role of tank operators in the defense of the city is significant. For each of them, the next day of the war is another day of hard and deadly dangerous work.
God willing, it will happen so that everyone will survive and get out of the vehicle. There are moments when it hits in such a way that the place with the crew is blown up.
From the Eastern Front, Ihor Levinok, Bohdan Savrutsky, Oleg Kukarsky. Details on Inter TV channel Marathon, United News.
Near the Oskil River, it's a real loop. The enemy made another audacious attempt. Kharkiv region stands unyielding. The enemy failed in their offensive. The armed forces of Ukraine did the unexpected. The defenders are using the occupiers' own tactics against them. The Russian command was not prepared for this. Ready? The countdown bite is in hours. What is happening there right now? You will find out next.
Every trip to the front line in the Kharkiv region is like a lottery. Drones are hunting for Ukrainian transport, and the traces of their attacks everywhere make you press harder on the gas. The driver of the 92nd Brigade claims that the electronic warfare systems are working, but only for self-reassurance.
Yes, you just convince yourself and that's it.
The Kharkiv region is a testing ground for the Russians, where the enemy tests their tactics. Thousands of small cuts hoping to bleed out the Ukrainian defense. In the north of the Kharkiv region, the Russian army still holds 2 buffer zones in the village of Hliboke and in the Vovchansk area. In the east, in the Kupiansk area, the enemy is trying to establish 2 more bridgeheads on the right bank of the Oskil River. Why do they need bridgeheads there? What were they planning?
A bridgehead is needed, whether it is wider. Moreover, there are prospects to establish crossings and deploy equipment. Currently, as far as I know, only small groups are being deployed there. And as for equipment, there is none yet. But if this bridgehead is expanded and some crossings are established, several crossings. If there is only one, it will be destroyed immediately. And if there are several crossings accordingly, it will be difficult to catch them and track their maneuvers.
The Ukrainians are trying to impose on the enemy the same tactics. A buffer zone is now being created in the Belgorod region. But Ukrainian military forces still remain in the territory of Kursk, claims the commander of the 92nd Brigade. 2 more units participated in the Kursk operation.
Well, they are not there. At this moment, as far as I understand, there are. Wow.
In the territory of Kursk? Yes. I won't disclose the specifics of their mission, but yes, they are performing certain functions there.
After the majority of the Ukrainian group withdrew from Kursk, it is clear how the Russians will act next. They will predictably try to expand their footholds in the Kharkiv region.
The 82mm mortar is not the largest caliber in the 92nd Brigade, but it is up to these guys to ensure that Russian assault troops do not get close to Ukrainian positions. Rifle fire.
Russian attempts to advance closer to Kharkiv end with the complete destruction of their assault groups.
They try, of course. Of course they probe.
They advance in small groups.
A lot of their infantry, as I understand, comes in and we cut them off.
But Ukrainians have not as of now managed to eliminate the so-called buffer zone that the Russians hold north of the village of Liptsi.
We're stuck like, as they say, on the ground. We can't beat them, and they can't just push forward.
The commander of the unit is a 20-year-old guy. He is injured. He has been fighting since he was 18.
After school, he signed a contract and became a mortar operator.
Call sign Ben, like all young volunteers, is supposed to receive 1 million hryvnias. On par with the guys who have just joined the military, participating in the Contract 18-24 project. There are almost 50 such individuals in the 92nd Brigade. Thank you. For the second week in a row, they are undergoing training.
Upon signing the contracts, you are paid 200,000. You complete the training and you get an additional 300,000. And 500,000 after 6 missions. And 6 missions might take a little longer.
But money is not the main motivator.
It's an additional motivation. I had already planned to go earlier, but when I turned 18, I saw they also offer extra money. Why not? If fate shows the way, I'll give it a try.
This guy's brother, a paratrooper, died near Klishchivka. For many here, it's revenge that drives them.
Guys, don't think with your head, oh, they look like they're 16, 17 years old. Don't mind how we look. We are already the armed forces of Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine!
Ahead are 2 months of intensive training and only then the first combat missions. The main one of which is to survive on the battlefield. Therefore, the focus is on tactical medicine. The instructor believes that 18-year-olds should have been trained from the very beginning of the war.
When a person turns 18, at the very least, they should be sent to some center, to brigades, for 3 months of training. Afterwards, they can be sent home, but they are already a mobilization resource. If we had been working and developing according to this scheme, we would now have an army of 1 million. 2 million, at least.
Russia, taking advantage of its numerical superiority, is trying to undermine people's will to win and therefore employs this tactic. Thousands of cuts not only at the front but also in frontline cities. Kharkiv Bishu is target number 1.
Quickly and accurately, that's how our mortar teams hit the Russians near Vovchansk. The occupiers simply didn't have time to understand what was happening. The enemy fears these fighters. The videos of our defenders' work impressed all of Ukraine. Their strategy works lightning fast. The Russian command definitely did not expect this. Did the occupiers decide to retreat urgently after this? More on this later.
2 or 3, right? Yes. What a face, which seemed in the metam, and it seemed black life in the metam. And
this small dugout was hastily dug because enemy drones were already flying overhead, says mortar operator Yuri Tizno. But they even managed to fit a small kitchen here. It was cold and damp in winter, so they warmed it with gas burners.
But only during the daytime? During the dark hours of the night, they take flight under the cover of darkness with covers, so as not to be visible. There were some inconveniences.
Enemy drones fly over here every 3 minutes. One of the soldiers is always on guard and listening. Attention, everyone. Ivan. To defeat the enemy's eyes, the soldiers need more of their own strike and reconnaissance drones. Now on the screen, you see a QR code through which you can support the battalion. Meanwhile, because of these enemy birds, every exit from the shelter. For our soldiers, it's a roulette. Well, it doesn't work out, but that's just the everyday reality.
We're not literally sunbathing, so we did the job. Hid and wait for the next one.
All these hours of life under enemy drones the soldiers spend to be able to cover the infantry in time. They work on the target so quickly that enemy scouts don't have time to spot them.
Our target, set by the command, is already buzzing like a dog. 2 of them have already gone swiftly. Glory to Ukraine.
Russian drones have started to significantly bother the soldiers in the Novochansk direction over the last 6 months. At the same time, artillery shelling has not decreased.
Chuck, chuck, chuck. All in one.
Does this happen often with you? Clear. Recently, President Volodymyr Zelensky announced a possible new offensive in the Sumy and Kharkiv regions. Mortar men Alexander and Yuri joined the ranks of the armed forces of Ukraine voluntarily and are not ready to give the occupiers a single centimeter of Ukrainian land.
We will stand, and not only stand, but also shoot and bombard. And everything will be in Ukraine. They will run so fast, they'll lose their shoes. So glory to the nation and death to the Russian Federation.
The warriors are eagerly awaiting volunteers to join their brigade, and while they are being relieved at their positions, their comrades have only a few minutes to switch shifts to avoid enemy drones. Yes, I see it. And then the road. And it is as clear as day to the Russian scouts. Behind the wheel is a driver with the call sign Kras. Last year, his vehicle was hit by enemy FPV 8 times.
What are they doing somewhere? To save their batteries, they also fly. Then they also land near the road and wait. As soon as they see, for example, someone is driving, they take off, saving their batteries this way.
The hardest road home from the position has ended. We arrived thanks to our military, safe and sound. From the Kharkiv region, Irina Antoniuk, Alexander Zhuchkov. We are Ukraine. Marathon. Unified News.
That's all from me for now. I was with you, Irina Hatsakalo. More intense news from the front in our next edition. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and like. See you